And for more on the situation in the Middle East, we're joined by Nader Hashemi, an associate professor at Georgetown University. Professor, thank you so much for joining us. Now, several events threatening to escalate the war in Gaza. Let's start with Tuesday's attack on Hamas leader Aruri. Now, Hezbollah has vowed retaliation for an assassination on Lebanese soil, something they had warned against. Do you think Hezbollah will retaliate? And if so, what form or shape could that take?
I don't think Hezbollah is going to retaliate for the Israeli assassination of a Hamas leader the other day in southern Beirut, in the stronghold of Hezbollah, because I think if it were to do so, it would invite a very heavy Israeli response that would probably devastate much of the civilian infrastructure in Lebanon and push the country of Lebanon over the brink. If you know anything about Lebanon today, over 80% of the population lives in poverty. It has a broken political system, a very broken economic system. It cannot sustain a war. It would literally lead to the disintegration of the country, and Hezbollah would be responsible for that situation were it to come about. So I think from that perspective, Hezbollah is very much constrained. I think they'll probably keep doing what they have been doing since October the 7th, the low intensity sort of conflict, firing, missiles across the Lebanon-Israel border, but to try to keep things contained and constrained within that framework. So that's how I see things playing out.
Now, Washington has been working to contain the Gaza war. Israel and Arab nations also say they don't want escalation. Now, whose interest would it be to drag the whole region into the Israel-Hamas war?
That's a great question. I think the leading candidate for that description would be Benjamin Netanyahu. Number one, his political career is very much in jeopardy because he was the prime minister on October the 7th. When this war ends, he's going to be held responsible for that tragedy that befell Israel that killed roughly 1,200 Israelis. So he has an interest in keeping this war going and expanding the war. He has to be able to claim, I think, some sort of military victory as a way of perpetuating his political career. Because if he returns back from this war without any victories, he's going to be held to account. And so I think that's one driver of the conflict that we're seeing right now. Of course, it's not the only element. The other sort of aspect of what's happening right now in the Middle East is that the war in Gaza has gone very bad for Israel. We're talking about the 100-day anniversary of this war is fast approaching, and Hamas is still firing rockets from the Gaza Strip into Israel. Israel has been unable to capture any of the senior leaders or kill them. Hamas seems to be very much intact. So this is a major, I think, military defeat for Israel, and one way of, I think, trying to shift attention from Israel's military failure in Gaza, but also the humanitarian catastrophe, which some people are saying is, a genocide, is to try and broaden the war, try and perhaps get Iran to respond to some of these Israeli provocations, hoping that the United States will then enter the conflict and it will shift into a very different dimension. I think that's part of the strategy here. Whether it'll play itself out remains to be seen.
Now, you mentioned that Benjamin Netanyahu has a lot to lose from the war ending. Would Hamas also benefit from an expansion of the conflict, given that, just to put the Palestinian cause front and center?
Well, the Palestinian cause right now is front and center based on, developments since October the 7th. It's interesting to contrast, what the region looked like, what people were talking about internationally on October the 6th. The Palestine question had been completely forgotten. And I think that's very much one of the reasons why Hamas launched this attack on October the 7th. According to its own leaders and its own statements, they wanted to put this issue back on the agenda. In terms of the expansion of the war, I think Hamas would very much welcome, other countries getting involved to support it. But all of the countries that, hold the potential of doing so are very weak. They're American allies. They're broken countries. They don't have the military capacity to take on Israel or the United States. So I don't think that's a realistic option. So yes, Hamas might, hope to have, and it might hope to benefit from an expansion of the war. But I think right now they are benefiting from the global outrage that we're seeing in the Gaza Strip, the criticism that Israel has been facing for its war crimes in Gaza. And Hamas is, I think Hamas will be very happy if the war ended tomorrow. It will be able to emerge from the tunnels and say that we defeated Israel, we defeated the United States. And if that were to happen, it would be a serious development in terms of the politics of the Middle East, giving a boost to militant groups and those countries that want to change the politics of the region, not through diplomacy, but through military means.
So we have Hamas, and then Hezbollah, and not forgetting Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. Now, all of these groups have links to Iran. So is this shaping up to be a proxy war between Washington and Tehran?
Well, yeah, that proxy war has been taking place for a very long time. It's intensified since October the 7th. I think it's very much the intensification of this proxy war, largely Iran using its proxies in the region to hit American targets, to put pressure on Israel in the Red Sea by trying to close shipping access through the Red Sea, is very much part of Iran's game to try and exert pressure on Israel and the United States. So this is a very old story in many ways, but I think its intensification is directly linked to the tragedy and crisis and horrors that we've been seeing in Gaza. There's no easy fix for that problem. I think if the situation in Gaza were to move in a better direction, a ceasefire, end of hostilities, a meaningful and serious peace process that will give Israelis and Palestinians, safety and security, I think that would significantly diminish Iran's ability to use these proxies to stir up regional chaos.
We want to thank you for your time and your insights. Nader Hashemi, Associate Professor of Middle East and Islamic Politics at Georgetown University. Thank you.